All right, gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for joining USEC's live online learning session M1 Unit 4. USEC stands for UNISA Science Engagement Center. Please note that you are about to be challenged mentally, and you're about to be challenged as a robotics coach, as a teacher in what you're about to learn today. Please note that today's session will be very interactive and we would also like you to be part of it. Without wasting time, all information will be on the chat. So I'll hand over to Meneer Johannes for the house rules. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamela. Welcome everybody to today's session. We only have a few small house rules for today. We would like to ask everybody to please mute your cameras to save data and bandwidth. Also to mute your microphones, keep all the background noise to a minimum. If anybody has a question at any point in time, please feel free to raise your hand. There will be question and answer sessions between the presentations, and then please enjoy. Over to you, Dr. Gous.
Thank you very much, team. Thank you. All right. So we are now in Unit 4. Of M1, and we have come now to a session which is called passive attachments. And so whenever we have a robot, so this is our robot, I'm just going to take this part off. There's always a part, because this is powered. So you have just the chassis, which has got the wheels and the brain, and then you have to make modifications. So if the robot has to do something, you need an attachment, and we build these attachments. There are many building instructions of how to build the attachments that you put onto the robot. But what you really want to do is you want to encourage your learners to start building attachments, and then they've got to modify it before they put it onto the robot for a specific purpose. All right. So the session really is about, so what is the kind of a collection of resources that you need, or building instructions you need, and there are a large collection of examples of different passive attachments. Remember, a passive attachment is you don't program it, you just attach it to the robot and it will do something. So for example, I will get you in the presentation. So if there's a passive attachment, this would, for example, be a passive attachment. So you just attach it onto your robot and we use it to push things or to fetch things. So it's got no programming, it's just a structure. It's only a structure that is attached to your robot. That's called a passive attachment. All right. But some passive attachments get a little bit more complicated. And what you need to do is you build models of passive attachments, and then you get your learners to attach them to the robot. And so you're building up. Remember, this is a process. This is a process of learning. Learners, when they start, maybe start small passive attachments, but as they mature in their engineering and in their programming, you'll see the development where they apply what they've learned and discovered to a next level. All right, so here is another attachment. I don't know whether you can see it so clearly, but it attaches like this to the front of the robot. So the robot will drive over something, the gate will lift up, it'll go forward, but when it tries to come back, whatever it's got in, it stays in the attachment. So this is a gated passive attachment, because it just attaches to the front of the robot. For this, we needed to collect a lot of things that were flat on the surface. So this robot pushed it over and then brought it back. If you needed to grab something that was maybe taller or not so wide, then you could say, okay, to the learners, make it narrower and make it taller, and then you attach it. And my cat's into, and so you adapt your attachments according to what is required. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going with the conversation today. A lot of passive attachments built by learners over the years. I've got a whole box of them, and then their imagination. Okay, so let's just go through the session, and I will do the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen again, and here we go.
What's happening to you?
I beg your pardon?
It's almost going through on my side.
There? Okay.
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. All right. So I've kind of got this. So this is the engineering design process that we are going to apply then to make passive attachments, and then we attach that to the robot. Okay, so unit 4 already, so we're doing well. We're doing well for M1. Again, this is our whole team, and we are there to help you and support you as we go along. You're kind of in unit 4 already, so I think there's lots of learning happening, and what we just want you to understand is now comes the practice. And I agree with Becky to say, once you have the robots, once you can actually build things, once you can actually do things, you'll have lots more questions, which is a good thing. All right. So again, we've got the building, we've got the programming, and in between that, we've got these 21st century skills. And this is moving beyond. You as a coach are going to develop as your team develops. You do not need to have all the answers. You just need to be one step ahead of the learners, which is not that difficult. All right. So we are doing passive attachments. We'll get to powered attachments in M2, okay? But we're just doing passive attachments. And remember, there are many resources for designing and building these attachments. So if you look in the overview document, there are a lot of questions that you can ask your learners, like name the steps of the engineering design process. For examples, name the steps of the programming that is required. Give examples of constraints that you need to consider. All robotics competitions have a limit to the size of your robot. That is a constraint. The robot can only run for so many seconds. That is a constraint. Give examples of risk. Well, there's huge risk because the robot might run off the table, the risk of the robot not having enough power. All right, so those are all the kinds of risks that you have. And in Unit 4, there are a whole lot of objectives that you can go through. All right, so the build objectives for Unit 4, and it's really, these are straightforward structures, and then you build them. And I'll give you some examples. Build a bumper and then try and attach it to your robot. Make it straight, so it's straight that you push something, or a V, so you plow through something, or an inverted V where you like collect something, okay? A delivery box is a box that you have where you put things in and you just push the whole box and then you leave it there. That is a delivery box. A motion trigger, a box and trap. So that was the box and trap that I showed you. A sweep where you have a single attachment and it just, the robot will then sweep the surface as it goes along. The hook is actually a very difficult passive attachment because it's got to be precise. And then the carabiner is that thing that you drop onto an item to pick it up. So you can build, the build objectives are you have to build them, but then the program objectives for Unit 4 is you actually have to program the robot to be able to use that attachment. It's no use having a stunning attachment and then you can't use it. So you always link, you build something and you have to program to. So some examples of activities would be, how do you then combine building and programming together? Okay, so you would build a bumper and you would have to, how do you push an item? How do you push an item on a flat surface? How do you push it up an inclined plane? And my favorite thing to push on a bumper is a tin of condensed milk. It's a heavy weight, but then if you have a lighter weight, you can have an empty water bottle. Different power settings you'll need in your robots to push something like that. Okay, a delivery, you always have a little ping pong balls or marbles that you've got to deliver. So then you can put them all into the box and then you push the whole box. All right, and then there's the motion trigger. So that's the pivot. You know, the lever position where you have a effort and a load, and then you have the pivot point in the middle. So it'll push it. See, it's all about application of what our learners have already been taught in technology. Okay, the box strap, you can make the size, length and breadth, and also height. So it goes 3 dimensions. The sweep is to sweep up all the items. The hook is to hook something. Do you hook it up or do you hook it from the side? And then the carabiner is how to hook something quickly. I'll give you examples of that. Okay, so that is the MOOC. That is the first part of the presentation. Let me just close this and let me just go onto the next presentation. So let me explain the engineering design process. Are we all here? Can you see that, Casper?
Yes, Dr. Gous, I can still see the MOOC portal.
And the engineering design process?
Nope. Oh, there it goes. Yes, I can see it now.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Great stuff. Okay. All right. So actually the engineering design process, there is an overview of it where engineering is the elementary. But there are many other alternative sites that you can get some information. But this is a good overview of the engineering design process. Remember, we're trying to develop skills. We're trying to develop the skills of the learners. So whenever you have a problem, you kind of say, okay, so what is the problem? All right, what are the constraints? And then what could be some of the solutions? And here is really the important is to listen to everybody's ideas. Don't just go with the first answer, all right? And then brainstorm it, and then the team needs to choose what's the best idea. All right, planning, drawing, making a list, making an idea of what is required. Then you create it, and then you improve it. So you'll never get a robot first time built, first answer, and that could work. All right. But you need to be able to apply it. And so what we're doing here is we're applying the engineering design process to the building of these attachments, okay? And there are lots of examples of these attachments. So let me give you some examples. I just want to pause here and say there is software that you can use to design these attachments. There is one, it's called Lego Digital Designer, and the other one is called, the new one is called Bricklink Studio.
Lego does own.
Okay, what?
Lego does own Bricklink.
Okay, so Lego Bricklink Studio is the other designing. The good thing of that is you can create your own designs, but also if you have a team that has amazing designs of attachments, how to capture that. So how do you, because you can't keep all these attachments, you actually have to start dismantling them for the pieces. But if you have at least the designs captured in, and it's like a CAD program where you have your program, your designs captured already. Okay. There is a book, an EV3 book called Winning Designs. And the cool thing about this thing is it gives you some really good ideas. The book hasn't come out for Spike Prime yet, but it does give you a good reading overview. And I do believe it is actually available. It's available in a PDF on the internet if you can look for it. All right. The other really cool book is on Lego Mindstorm's idea book. All right. And this is just how to make really simple attachments. Not all of them are passive though. Some of them have got some gearing in them, but it's also a good way to start kind of figuring out these are possible attachment ideas that you can use with your teams. All right. So why do you have to have attachments? Well, you have a robot that can move forwards and backwards, all right? But now your robot needs to be able to do something. So I've either got to push something, I've got to pull something, collect something, deliver, lift, drop, fetch. So those are all your verbs, all right? And you've got to add that function to the robot, okay? But it must be easy to attach. So if you've dropped something, you maybe need to go and fetch something else. So your attachments need to be easy to pin onto your chassis, but then also to remove very quickly. Powered attachments we're doing today, the passive attachments we're doing today, the powered attachments we are then going to do in 2 weeks' time. All right. So for examples, the attachments always need to be clipped onto the chassis, has no additional programming, where the powered attachments do have attachments replied. Okay. Let me just quickly put my phone off. All right, and then there are a lot of materials and resources that you can use. All right, the passive attachment, there's no programming. It has to address a specific verb, and it's easy to pin on. So that would be example of a bumper and a plow and a container and a hook. All right. So if you're designing, so this is kind of the two things. So on the one hand, you've got these building instructions, and you give the learners the building instructions. It's clear, they know exactly what they've got to do, and it's existing knowledge. But it's not their attachments. It's not the things that they have designed. We do following the building instructions to create a frame of reference, all right? Because we want to take the explanation, we want to build up this frame of reference, and then we're going to apply it when we brainstorm an idea. That is where you have creativity. You can have your own designs. Yes, it has to be time consuming because it's new. We have to we are good at troubleshooting, so we can look at it. And sometimes we need to reinvent the wheel, but we avoid that by using innovation. So we've got to have creativity to redesign something that's going to work a little better. All right. So an example of a trigger attachment. So if this robot were to move forward, there is a pivot point here attached to this axle. So if it moves forward, as soon as that piece touches the side of this bucket, all right, and moves forward, what will happen? The ball will fall into the bucket. All right. That is a passive attachment. All right, the next one is, I showed you this gathering. So it's kind of like a bumper, but it's a bumper with sides. So if we move forward, we can either push something to deliver it, or we can go forward and then turn around. So then we collect those items and we bring them back. All right. Okay, then you can get really snazzy examples. So this is a bumper, a V-shaped, or a plow that you attach then to the front of your robot. So if you're going to go straight, that's how you're going to just push everything out the way. All right. There are a whole lot of building instructions. All right, and some of them are for old robotics kits like the NXT with a modular test vehicle. There are passive attachments under the EV3 lessons. There are attachments specifically for robots, for competitions. I know Dr. Hino gives some really good ideas. Builder Dude 35 also gets some really cool ideas. Okay, so this is all that we need to have as for attachments. What I really want to re-emphasize is that when you build your passive attachments, you need to build them and test them. And I'm really encouraging you, when you go through M4, through M1, through the unit number 4, look at each of the attachments and actually build it and then test it. See whether you can gather things, whether you can put things together, whether you can pull things together, whether you can build the carabiner to attach something, whether you can actually lift with a loop to see whether you can attach something. All right. And then when you have finished all the activities, I really encourage you to submit your M1 portfolio. Please submit it and please complete the evaluation. We'd love to hear from you. We are always looking for new ideas. If you've got material that you want to add, please share it with us, that we can only but improve. We have an amazing sharing community that have thus far been sharing their ideas, and so a lot of the stuff has been added as we go along. This is our third iteration of the live online learning sessions already. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now and I'm going to ask, are there any questions? Yes. Anybody got any questions? Anybody? I'll just show you. So here, just as an example, here is a box attachment. So what they did was they put a whole lot of ping pong balls inside here, and then the robot just pushed this whole box as a passive attachment and just pushed it further and further forward. All right. You will also get a lot of ideas if you go and look at, say, how teams competed in a competition. And so how they built their attachments to complete missions. And if you analyze it, rather than just looking how they scored, but rather just look at the robot and see the attachments that they've put onto the robot and how quickly, if something is pinned onto a robot, they can change it. So they take it on and then they put it on, and that is all coordinated. And so you build up a collection of attachments: arms, carabiners, plow, hooks, the bumper, whether it goes forward, whether it goes with a side, whether it has sides on the bumper, and I think that's about. Yeah. I did show the box.
If you've got a kit, we can.
So this is I've shown you this one. This one was just a dump thing. So we built a shelf and they dropped the stuff into a box. All right. Any questions? Any questions at all? Or has everybody gone to build attachments so long?
Show them attachments if you've got a kit.
Anybody?
We've got a question.
Hi. Yes, Imzi.
All right. MZ, go ahead. Unmute yourself. MZ, you can go ahead. Your microphone has been enabled.
Imzi?
Hello.
Yes, I'm listening.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. No, I'm Tandega from KZN, Imiziga Ifani Primary School. So there's a homework that you say we need to do that requires us to build an attachment and test it.
Yes.
So when is it due? Because we don't have like the resources currently to build it.
Yes. So are you one of the educators with Manzi.
Yes, yes, I'm one of the educators
Okay.
under Mr. Manzi.
All right. So we're just waiting for the last MOUs to come in, and then we'll courier you all your equipment.
Okay.
The portfolios are open up until the end of November.
Okay, no, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
So that'll give you lots of time to practice with your learners, and if your learners can
Okay.
help you submit your portfolio.
Okay, thank you so much.
She's one of the energetic young ladies in our district.
I look
She
forward
wants
to
to work
meeting you.
as soon as yesterday. Thank you.
I look forward to meeting you.
Quick question, Dr. Hose.
Yes.
Is the portfolio the Word document to be completed?
Yes.
All right, so there you go. Any other questions? Please raise your hand or feel free to unmute yourself. Or yes, please feel free. Or should you go to the next part of the? Oh, I see Elmarie. Go ahead.
The question is that's online. You get an immediate response to say you've submitted your questionnaire. And then in a portfolio, you actually have to submit your marks as well. Who marks that? Is it yourself, Dr. Gous?
I have a team of markers. Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering because the response is immediate, but the marks aren't.
I will go look on the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding today's session or your unit or your portfolio? Or should we hand over to Dr. Hose for the next phase of the session?
Anybody, any other questions? Anybody?
There are no questions.
No questions.
I think everyone wants to build their attachments and robots. So, yes.
I hope so. I hope so. All right. I have got another session quickly. I just need to attend something. But Sylvia has volunteered to give you some more programming tips on how to program your robot. She's got a Spike Prime robot, and she's got some Spike Prime programming examples she wants to show you. And you're more than welcome to ask her any questions. I'm going to, Jamila, if you could just host the session.
No problem.
Okay. And I will be back as soon as I've just dealt with this one issue quickly. And then I'm going to hand over to Sylvia. Sylvia, do you want to share your screen?
I don't know. Actually, kind of want to show them the robot.
Okay. Well, your oh, wait, there we go. All right. All right. So there's the programming again. Jamila, can you guarantee? Can you
Yes.
say that you can see it?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Sylvia, you can sit here.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. The camera is on. Okay.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Just stand in the background.
I will see you now.
Yeah.
The cats are taking up the chairs. The camera's on. Yeah, I know. I know. I'm aware of that.
Okay. Hello. I've got another robot here. I just quickly wanted to show you an example of I forgot what it was called. I did build it. This was our robot back then. You can see it's got a nice big frame around it. Usually when you're building attachments, you need to connect it somewhere. And if it's an attachment you would like to remove, like for example, we had this one, then you plug it in there in the front. If it wants to go in. There we go. Plug it in the front and you've got your attachment. Completely passive robot, just has to drive forward, does whatever, and then when you're done with the mission, unclip it, put it aside. That's what a passive attachment is. And then we also had the powered attachments connected on the arm there. We don't have to look at the program if you guys don't want to. Does anybody have any questions about the about the robots, about the attachments, about what you use attachments for, and how do you decide whether to use a passive attachment or a powered attachment?
Sylvia, I see Elmarie just indicated on the chats that my robot is already moving forward, turning and then backwards now for attachments. So if you don't mind, Ms. Elmarie, can you unmute yourself and tell us more? Or You want to find out where to start to regarding attachments?
Yeah. What type of attachment do you want to build? And what is it going to do?
It seems that the instruction is to try and move a tin can of condensed milk.
Condensed milk, yeah.
So I'll try for that first.
Okay. What robot are you working with, out of curiosity?
Spike.
Spike. Now you
Spike
see
is
that's where the
Spike
interesting
Prime.
thing comes
Sorry.
in. This, yeah, the Spike Prime is very light, and a can of condensed milk is about, I think, about 90% of the robot's weight.
Yes.
So I would really like to see if you can actually get that right. Otherwise, Dr. Host might have to revise the assignments and make it a little bit easier, because the EV3, as you can see, is very big, very bulky, and it's also like quite heavy. Whereas our spikes are on the table. The spikes are a lot lighter physically. So
I was thinking of drinking the condensed milk and then put a can down.
you can also do that. That would be problem solving. Doesn't say the can has to be full. But yes, it's a good mission to start with. And to everybody else that doesn't have access to a robot, you can go download Lego Digital Designer or Bricklink Studio and build things digitally. You might not be able to build them physically, but you can play around in there and design yourself a little arm, which then later when you do get a kit, you just go back into your program and the program generates instructions for you. So then you have instructions to your own attachment and how to build it, which is quite interesting. Yeah. I'm not sure if anybody wants to hear more about the programming.
Please go ahead, Sylvia, with the programming. Thank you.
I'm not sure if anybody wants to. Yeah, this laptop does not have a back camera. And so if I pick you up and move you, we're going to go. Okay, hang on. Let me just go back to Teams quickly. Give me a second to rearrange.
All right, while we're waiting for Sylvia, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to send them on the chat box or just raise your hand and then feel free, and then yes, we'll give you an opportunity to ask.
Yeah.
Please also don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page. We are ISET Lego, and on YouTube we are ISET UNISA. Over to you, Sylvia. Thank you.
Okay, I need yell at me if the robot goes off of the screen, because I won't be able to see how far I am.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so when you have your robot, you need to connect it to the laptop somehow. We're going to go with Bluetooth. And again, we're just going to click on here, and here we've got it. Can you just confirm that you can see the program?
Yes. No. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, so Daisy. Okay. Okay. Sorry, it's a touchscreen as well. Okay, so would anybody like to guess what this program does?
Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand.
It will beep, and then at a slowish speed, it will actually move forward, and your wheels are connected to the points A and E. So it will move forward for 4 rotations.
Okay.
It's quite a distance.
And it's also going to beep. Okay. I'm going to make it drive past the laptop because it's going to go past the laptop. So now we're going to download and run. And I think forward is in that direction. I'm not sure. And now it's going all the way off of the screen on the other side. But yes, that was correct. Thank you, Elmarie. It just drove 4 rotations off of the screen.
I've got a question regarding the programming, Sylvia.
Yes.
I see here it says when program starts, play beep 60. What does 60?
Oh, 60 is the note on the key.
Oh, okay.
This robot, the EV3 can play sounds like barking and laughing and say colors. It's got a voice. This one is limited to musical notes, and any other sounds you play will be off of the laptop.
Nice, nice.
So this is what I was saying about before. If you run the program from here, the robot makes a little sound when it starts the program. So if I do this, let's do that. You'll hear the sound the robot makes.
All right. Yeah. I heard that. Yes.
Yeah, that little whatever that sound is.
It's like drop in the ocean.
Yes, but that's if you download it via Bluetooth or that it makes that sound. If you download it via cable and you use it from here, there's no confirmation of download. So there's no way to know whether your program actually downloaded or not. You just have to believe it. And so just to make sure that when we do actually run our program, that it's the new one, we're just going to play the beep so that we know that, okay, it did actually pick up something. And then the beep also gives you like a 0.2 seconds to grab the robot if you wanted to stop. Which, yeah, if the robot starts driving and you want it to stop, which I just wiped the program, so that program doesn't do anything. Just good practice. If a robot starts and you want it to stop, this robot only has one button in the middle. The EV3 looks a little bit different. It's got grab one.
It's 5 buttons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's got a lot of buttons. Can you just tell me if that's on screen?
Yes.
Okay. The EV3 has got multiple buttons. The center one is for starting things, playing, starting the programs, turning it on. All the select yes.
It's like OK button, yes.
Yes. And you got arrow keys, OK button, yeah. And then this one is a back, exit, no, stop.
All right.
And when you're busy with the robots, when you actually get the robot, it's good practice to always grab the robot with 2 hands, wherever you are. Because sometimes if you just pick it up with a brick, the brick will become unclipped. And then you drop the rest of your robot and you drop all the motors and the rest of the...
Yeah, then you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
Right. I see Katlego on the chat says, hi team, I managed to install the Lego Digital Designer. I'm not sure though if I need any other software, or is the Lego Digital Designer enough?
I'm going to go ahead and actually suggest you don't use Digital Designer and that you try Bricklink Studio. Lego also owns it now. Bricklink was the standard a few years ago, and most of Patricia's teaching material is based on that. So it might be a little bit confusing if you go to Bricklink, but Bricklink is a much cleaner program, if that's a better word. It's a little bit more updated, and its interface is just a little bit better.
All right.
And I don't think you don't need any additional programs for the 2 designers. If you install EV3 Lab, but that's only if you've got an EV3 robot. If you install the EV3 Lab software, for that you need Microsoft Silverlight. But no, the 2 digital designer programs come with all the Lego pieces ever made, and then you can build to your heart's content. It's very fun to use, and like I said, you can build whatever you want and then save it. And when you do get your hands on a robot, then you've got a whole list of things you can try that you designed earlier. That's also how you, all the instructions you find online, that's generally how they build the robots and then generate the instructions from there. You still get your instructions in a PDF form, but yeah. Then you can make your own instructions for robots. For example, if you do have an FLL robot that your team has a robot that they're very proud of, but you participate in other competitions throughout the year, then you can immortalize your design by building it in one of the designer programs. And then the next year when you do FLL, instead of starting from scratch again with a brand new robot, you can go back and build your older one and then adapt it with new attachments specifically made for that competition. Because as you can see, you get some robots that are very small and very simple, and then you get some robots which are very, very complicated, but they do a lot more. And this robot, for example, I still need to rebuild on, I'm going to choose Studio because, like I said, I like it a little bit more. I need to build this over so that if we need to fix it, or because this robot comes from 2014, so she's been through quite a bit. But yeah, then we can take a couple of pieces off and replace parts. And if we ever need to rebuild it, then we've got that design saved, because building from photos might be quite difficult. That's why you would use one of the designer programs. And then if you've got it in a designer, if you build a robot in a designer program, you can also test attachments just to see if they fit on your robot before you actually build them. So you can design them straight off the top without physically having a set with you, which might be useful for teams that aren't in the same school but still have access to internet. So then they can all take the little design they have, and then each one can go modify the arms the way they want to in the digital program, and then come back to class and say like, oh, okay, I built this attachment, but they don't physically have the pieces. Okay, we've got a very simple program here. I just want to go back to one thing that Patricia said in the previous unit. I think that one's a little bit more suited to this style of robot. When she was talking about the tank and the steering, those blocks would generally be, this one here is a steering. If I click on that, little steering wheel pops up. And what this does is it changes the power automatically, so that by the end of that 10 centimeters in this case, the robot will be turned 30 degrees. So it sort of curves a little bit. Whereas the move tank, and this one's, whoops, a daisy. This one's kind of hidden. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm working at an angle here. Okay, we do have the move tank, you have 2 speed options. Also, this list is just a very long scroll thing. You have to scroll. Yeah, here you go. The move tank, you can see there's move a distance at 50% speed. And the one place where you would use move tank is if you're turning, and you would make one negative, in which case one wheel will go forwards and one wheel will go backwards, and then you get a nice little neat turn, because then you know that the motors are both moving the same distance.
Okay, so this is like a replacement of the EV3 classroom, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is not a replacement for EV3 classroom. EV3 classroom is a replacement for EV3 lab.
So, quick question. Sorry to cut you there.
No, it's okay. Please ask more questions.
If I want my robot to turn the other way, I need to go to more movement, and then I select move, for example, 10 centimeter at 50 and minus 50, like you explained. So it doesn't give me an option. It doesn't give me an option to say move A or E.
Okay, in the case of more in movement, you set your motors beforehand.
Oh, I see that. Yes.
Yeah. That's with the Spike program, with the Spike app. There we go. And with EV3 Classroom, with both of them, you have to tell the robot which motors are the wheels. Because if you look at this guy, it might be obvious which ones are the wheels, but that's only because they're next to each other. They are plugged in C and D.
Okay.
But with one that's got more motors and that's on its side, we can't actually see which one's connected where.
Yeah.
It might be difficult to tell. That's also one reason why, and you can see at the top there, it also just shows you it's all motors. It doesn't tell you if it's the little medium motors or if it's the very large motors.
Right.
So you have to tell them which ones you want to drive with, because if you try and sync up your two I mean, you could also use it to sync two arms together, but that's usually not very necessary. You've only got 4 motors and you generally don't use them like that. For the arms, you would use the single motors. And again, for turning, you can, for turning, you can also use these. You can see here, you can still select A, B, C, D, E. So if I select E, and then E goes, this is now clockwise and anti-clockwise.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. It's got, you've got quite a few options of turning everywhere. This one, oops, a daisy. There is somewhere a little PowerPoint that explains to you how to tell if the motors are moving forward or backwards.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this one, you've got one motor, well, facing outwards on that side, and then if you flip it, that motor is also facing outwards. But how does it know which way to drive? How does it know that that's forward and that's backwards? There is a little explanation of that somewhere. Otherwise, you can always just go for motors clockwise and anti-clockwise.
All right.
I think it's a bit complicated. And sorry, yeah, the one wheel turn. Okay, I'll show it. Now I'll show it from the front. Okay, the one wheel turn. I'll just move this one forward. This one just stays still, and then you just get a one wheel turn. Or you can also do one wheel back. Yeah, works quite easily. Oops, let me just leave that on the camera.
For asking questions.
I see on the chat, Elmarie says, how do you reset the motors to be at the correct point before you start? And then she says, on Saturday, we had to reset the wheels as the robot went skew and it was programmed to go straight.
Okay, it depends on which robot you're using. With the EV3, you can reset the motors, and that option is here in this set of motors blocks. There's another block that says reset motor, whatever. With a spike, that isn't necessary. What you it should actually drive straight. I'm not sure why it wouldn't, unless you accidentally turned the steering on for some reason and you had it going like left 15 or something like that. Or if another thing that happens a lot with these robots, if you look at these wheels, you'll see they're very, very smooth compared to like the older wheels. Okay, I'm holding this very, like you can see these are very, very bumpy, very textured. So these have a lot of grip and a lot of friction. These new ones are very, very smooth. And so if the surface that you're working on is dusty or dirty, you can see I've got some nice lines here from where I was working on the table downstairs. You can easily lose traction, and then your robot tends to slip and slide all over the place. So I would recommend, if your robot should be driving straight, if there's nothing else that you can see that's wrong with it, just take the wheels off, give them a clean just with a wet cloth, no soap or anything funny, and also just take them off your robot so it's a little bit easier. So you just pop that off, give it a good wipe everywhere, make sure it's properly clean and make sure it's dry. And then make sure the surface that you're working on is also, it doesn't have to be spotless, but at least no dust, because dust is what causes it to slip and slide. If it's still not driving straight, then
Test the motors.
Yeah, test the motors. There is a there are videos online of how to test your motors that they work together. I think that's mostly a problem with EV3. I haven't seen anybody have that problem with a spike. Oh, but on that note, you can still use, oops, daisy again, sorry. You can still use the relative position. The spike motors, and now I'm going to need to find one to show you. Okay, you can, yeah, okay, let me just pull that wheel off again. You need to hold this very, very close to the camera. Okay. On the spike motor, there's a little line there. That is position 0. So you can always turn your wheel or turn your motor and then tell it to go back to the original position. So that's sort of somewhat a hard reset, but you can't set it from beforehand unless you manually turn this back to its own position or write a small program that runs it before you start with your missions.
Cancel.
Okay, you might also see a cat in the background. Bear in mind, robots and animals don't usually go together, but sometimes they are very encouraging. So might help to have a furry friend around. Okay. Do we have any other questions regarding, well, this program, the designer programs, anything to do with the robots? I can't see. Everybody's very quiet.
Are there any questions?
Yeah. I think Tamelo's busy dealing with some troubleshooting on the side there, answering questions in the chat.
If anybody has a question, please feel free to raise your hand or to unmute.
Yes, please do. I'm sure everybody's just sitting there with their minds running of what possibly can they do when they get their hands on a set. It's going to be very difficult to hand the robot over to the kids. You're going to want to just sit and play with it the whole time, but that's why we suggest that when you do go through the MOOCs, spend a little bit of extra time just messing around with it. Just see what you can do. See what when it comes to the problem solving, see if you can create your own problems that you then have to solve. So unplug your wires, see what happens when you plug everything in the wrong port. Call your programs funnier names, see if that does anything.
I see you've got a question from Peggy. Sorry to cut you.
No, it's okay. I can't see the chat, so I can't see any hands up.
Go for it, Peggy.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity and also the training that we are getting, but it'd be easier when we have the resources. I wanted to follow up on the next two training that are going to take place almost a longer time. That is going to be similar or it's going to be different, where we have to participate in the forthcoming training on the 25th of Mr. King.
Okay. Is the camera still on? All right. So so there is you are very welcome to then look at all the recordings that are available on the MOOC portal and maybe have sessions at each school that they go through the equipment. We are hoping to courier the equipment hopefully by Friday. We're just waiting for, I think, 2 more MOUs coming in, and then we will courier the whole lot. So I would really encourage at each school for the group of educators to work through the videos and work through the content that's available on the MOOC portal. If there are any questions, you are welcome to ask. And M2 is going to be presented later in this, not the week coming, but the week after. That's M2, so that kind of follows up on M1 as well. And hopefully then by then you'll have your equipment. All right.
Yeah. And again, if
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And if there are any questions that you can't quite get to, we're always on the other end of the emails. And if you send the email to the wrong person, we are all friends and family here. We know who to forward it to and where you can get your answers. And so if you do have any problems with like the programming, anything like that, that would be me. But you still send it to the ISET email and we'll distribute it. Okay,
so on that schedule, from 22, 23, 24, and 25 August, we have got robotics and environmental sciences, which is Tamelo's sessions, and he is showing us how to then combine environmental sciences and robotics with a whole lot of extra information as well. He's also launching his own MOOC, so that is really cool. We are busy in the final stages of QA on that, so exciting times. And then so that'll be the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock slot, and then from 4 to 5 we are doing M2. And M2, thank you, Tamela. M2 is then where we consider powered attachments and using sensor data and using the sensor data from your sensors in your programming as well. Yep. All right. Thank you, Tamela. Any other questions? I know it's been a long session already, but we're very grateful for that. Yes.
Any other questions from our participants, and any suggestions that you'd like us to include on our upcoming sessions are highly welcomed.
Yeah.
Please don't hesitate to also email us on i-set@unisa.ac.za. And yes,
Cool.
please feel free to unmute yourself or to raise your hand. Or yes, we'll take it from there. But I see there are any other questions, Dr. Khoz.
Okay, so Tamelo, you can graciously close the session for us then. Thank you very much.
All right. To our live online participants, thank you so much for being interactive and for asking questions. And for those that are watching the recording, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the recordings. And for those of you who are struggling in terms of logging on the MOOC portal, please don't hesitate to email us on i-set@unisa.ac.za. And if you want to see what's been happening with our expos, our sessions, and where we are, our workshops, please follow us on our social media pages. We are iSet Lego on Facebook, and we are iSet Unisa on YouTube. Without wasting time, I'd like to say thank you so much, Dr. Ho, Sylvia, Casper, Anzani, Cabello, and the rest of the team. Keep well and have a lovely Wednesday.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity.